we could maybe move on now to Dr. Benno Boer and his presentation. If I can hand it over to you, Benno, now, and please take the floor.
Okay. First of all, I would like to express my thanks to Leif El Mograbi for a wonderful presentation. And there we go. Can you see that?
Yeah, all clear.
I have shared my screen. You can see it. So thank you very much, Leif. I learned a lot. And thank you very much for the Star Terra team, Amr Al-Zubaydi, and John and Maurizio and everybody from the team. It's a pleasure to be here with you, and many thanks for inviting UNESCO and myself to be part of it. I will also speak to you for about 30 minutes. Not so much about fauna like Leif did, but I will speak a little bit more about flora. When I press, nothing happens. I try to, there we go. Okay, the subject is living in harmony with nature. Let us just recall that in the Arabian Peninsula, which is the geographical focus of this seminar, there used to be Bedouins living, and Samaria, fisher folks, and sessile people in the mountains. They lived in harmony with nature. We now, and not only in the Arabian Peninsula, but globally, we are not living in harmony with nature in this moment of time. We need to relearn it, and we need to do it urgently. Let me just, before I go into colorful illustrations, point out that we are living in the Anthropocene, the time, the geological time that is heavily impacted by us, by man, and the impact that we are currently carrying out causes biodiversity loss, it causes climate change, and it causes pollution. This is what we call the triple planetary crisis. Let me just remind everybody, if we do not have food to eat, we will perish after 3 weeks. If we do not have water to drink, we will perish after 3 days. Of course, if we are in a hot desert environment like Riyadh, for example, or Abu Dhabi or Kuwait, not even 3 days. If we don't have air to breathe, we can live only 3 minutes. And all these wonderful resources that we need for human survivability, food, water, and air, it comes from nature. Oxygen comes from plants, food comes from plants and from animals that have been fed on plants, and the water comes from aquifers, rainfall, dew, from the entire water cycle. In the Arabian Peninsula, of course, we have water shortages, as Amr pointed out in his introductory remarks. We have hardly any rivers, and we are very much dependent on seawater desalination. It is our responsibility to protect ecosystems, including fauna, flora, soil, water, animals, and the climate system to sustain life and preserve the natural balance for future generations. What I mean with responsibility, it's our social responsibility, our environmental responsibility, and even our religious responsibility. At UNESCO, let me just go into that for a minute. For those of you who are not familiar with UNESCO, it is the educational, scientific, and cultural arm of the United Nations system. We are dealing with the establishment of biosphere reserves. Those are areas for sustainable human living and nature conservation. We are dealing with water resources management, in particular towards capacity building and knowledge transfer in water governance. We are dealing with science, technology, engineering for sustainability, promoting STEM education, which is of the utmost importance for the Arabian Peninsula, because let me remind everybody, the Arabs were on the top of education and science so many years ago. In this moment of history, that is just simply not the case. There are some first-class institutes being established, in particular in Saudi Arabia, in the United Arab Emirates, also in Qatar. But the participation of Gulf Arab young professionals is still very, very low. It is less than 10%. Most of the science is being conducted by foreigners from the Arab region, from the Middle East, from India, Pakistan, Europe, North America, Australia, and so on. UNESCO also deals with encouraging engineering solutions for local challenges and supporting the decade of education for sustainable development. I am pressing page down, but nothing happens. Seems that it hangs. Nothing happens at all. I also can't click on my. Let me try again. Oh, there we go. Okay, can you see me? Can you?
Yeah. Oh, it was there.
Yeah, okay. That was somehow my system doesn't operate very well, so I will not go back to the previous graph. It was just a standard climate diagram from Riyadh. Let me just remind everybody that the Arabian Peninsula has very limited precipitation rates of less than 20 millimeters per year in the Rub al-Khali, which is the largest sand desert on Earth, and it goes up to 800 millimeters per year in the Red Sea Mountains in Yemen and in southern Oman. That is equivalent to the precipitation in Lebanon or in England or in Germany or the Netherlands. But here we have much higher evaporation rates. On biosphere reserves, that is one of the three systems for nature conservation that UNESCO has since the 1970s. Fortunately, the two biosphere reserves have been established in Saudi Arabia, Parasan and Harat Uwairid, and one in Qatar, that's Al Reem, two in the UAE, Merawa and Wadi Al Waraya in Abu Dhabi and in Fujairah, and two in Yemen, Bura'a, and one on the Socotra Islands. So far, none in Bahrain, in Kuwait, and Oman. So those of you who are from these three countries, I highly encourage you reach out to your environmental authorities and try to inspire them to establish UNESCO Biosphere Reserve, for example, in the Gulf of Salwa around Bahrain, Bubiyan Island in Kuwait, and in Oman. There are efforts going on. There is a lot of potential to establish biosphere reserve. There are 759 of them globally in more than 136 countries, and the Congress on Biosphere Reserve takes place every 10 years. The next one is in Hangzhou in China next month from the 22nd to the 25th of September. So I really hope that there will be a lot of participation from Saudi, Kuwait, Bahrain, UAE, Qatar, and Oman. And who knows, maybe Saudi will be the next host in 2035. The last one was in Lima, Peru, and before that it was in Madrid in Spain. Biosphere reserves are places to apply, test, and demonstrate best practices for human living in harmony with nature. And that's the subject of our seminar today. The flower that you see here is actually a common flower from the Arabian Peninsula, Picorium pumilum. It's related to dandelion and chicory, and it can be eaten and it can be used by camels, goats, and sheep. This is another plant that is very common around the Arabian Peninsula. It's Avicennia marina, known as kurm in Arabic language. It's the mangrove, and it's the only mangrove species in the Gulf. We have two more mangrove species in the Red Sea, such as Rhizopora mucronata in Saudi, Red Sea, and in Yemen. And on the other side, in Eritrea and Djibouti, we also have Cereops tagal. Mangroves are immensely important for shoreline stabilization as a breeding and nursery ground for fish for primary productivity. That means the more mangroves we have, the more fish we will have. Since about 10 years, we talk about mangroves functioning as blue carbon ecosystems. That means they are sequestrating atmospheric and oceanic carbon in the soil. Other plants only do that in the biomass. Mangroves are storing it in the soil, and they are storing carbon in the soil for thousands of years. Of course, mangroves also have traditional uses, such as being used as a firewood and as charcoal, and more recently, they are being used for nature tourism, with people going kayaking in the mangroves. Seagrass beds are equally important, maybe even more important. They are among the most productive ecosystems on Earth, and I would like to point my finger again at the Gulf of Salwa, Khalij Salwa, between Qatar, Bahrain, and the eastern province of Saudi Arabia. I would like to encourage the authorities over there to work with each other and establish the Gulf of Salwa as a World Natural Heritage Site or as a biosphere reserve, as we discussed with them many, many years ago. It's time to do that and to follow up. Mangroves in the Middle East and Arab states that cover a total of 625 square kilometers. Mangroves are extremely interesting because of their salinity tolerance. These plants and the seagrasses that I've shown you in the last slide, they can grow with seawater. Now consider that 71% of the Earth's surface is seawater, and 97% of the water on our planet is seawater. It is of immense importance that these mangroves are being studied, scientifically studied, for the utilization of high salinity in university studies. In Abu Dhabi, there was the Zayed International Farm for High Salinity Tolerant Plants. In Dubai, there is the International Center for Biosaline Agriculture. In Tunisia, we have another center, and also in Karachi, the Dr. Mohammed Ajmal Khan Institute for Sustainable Halophyte Utilization. They are all studying plants for the utilization of seawater tolerant plants. Here a photo from Dubai. This is not a natural mangrove, as beautiful as it looks. It's a man-made mangrove. It has been planted between 1991 and 1994, and it has been so successfully done that it even attracts migratory birds, the one that Leif mentioned in his presentation, in this case here, flamingos. In Bahrain, and of course Bahrain is geographically not a very large country with 700 something square kilometers in size, but still we have about 0.8 square kilometers of mangrove in Bahrain. In Kuwait, it's even less. In Kuwait, it is because Kuwait is exposed to very cold winter temperatures that go below 0 degrees Celsius almost every winter, and that is then also the threshold of mangrove. There they will be replaced by salt marshes. We have the same phenomenon in Sharm el-Sheikh, in the Arabian Peninsula, in southern Japan, and in northern New Zealand, and in other places where it gets too cold, mangroves will not grow. Oman, of course, with a much milder climate, they've got almost 11 square kilometers in their sheltered creeks and lagoons. In Qatar, on the western side of Qatar in the Gulf of Salwa, it's very, very good for the richest seagrass beds on the planet, the most productive seagrass beds on the planet. But there are no mangroves, it's too salty. On the eastern shore in Qatar, however, we have some lagoons in Al Khor and Al Bakira, and there we have 12.3 square kilometers of mangroves. And it was also in Qatar that UNESCO spearheaded, together with Lusail City and Mojan Marina's system on floating mangrove that is now being transported into the small island developing state Fiji in the Pacific Ocean. The University of New South Wales in Australia, they are carrying out a pilot project over there. I wish that another pilot would come up in the Arab region. Saudi Arabia is among the Middle Eastern countries heavyweight in mangrove. It has 204 square kilometer coverage. But then if you compare it with India, where I'm right now, it's 4,300. Next door in Bangladesh, it's 4,850. Next door in Burma, Myanmar, it's 5,000. And in Indonesia, it is 30,000 square kilometers. But these mangroves, as I pointed out, they can be irrigated with seawater. So we can also, to a degree, try to plant them in coastal zones. United Arab Emirates is one of the 3 countries in the world that has an increase in mangrove coverage. It's only Eritrea based on planting, United Arab Emirates based on highly successful planting, and Australia has an increase of mangrove due to climate change, sea level change, that can either lead to an increase or it can also lead to a decrease. But in the Emirates, it's based on successful planting of Avicennia marina. In Yemen, we have 9.3 square kilometers of mangroves, and we have the phenomenon of a crater lake in the mainland Yemen that also has mangroves growing in them, and nobody knows how that happened. On salt marshes, we have the large areas of salt marshes around the Arabian Peninsula. If we include the Mesopotamian marshes between Kuwait and Iraq, it's all the way up to 36,000 square kilometers, often dominated by Atrocnemium macrosacchium, Halocnemium tubilaceum, and other salt marsh plants. But in the Mesopotamian marshes, it is mostly Phragmites communis. I'm showing that to you in a minute. Here, 2 salt marsh species, Halopeplis perfoliata and Salicornia sinus persica. On the left-hand side, that plant is the promising plant for the production of edible salad crops, pickles, and for the production of oilseeds. Tests have been carried out in the United States of America, United Arab Emirates, also in Saudi, also in Oman, and in Mexico. This is a satellite image of coastal salt deserts known as Sabqa. It's an Arabic term describing coastal saline flats. They are so saline that only blue-green algal nets can grow in them unless there is a freshwater impact, then mangrove and salt marshes and other plants can also grow. Here we have the freshwater systems. Phragmites australis grows, a lot of that grows in the Nile Delta, in the Danube Delta, in the Shatt al-Arab, and we have Typha domingensis here that also grows in these deltas, but also in the wadis up in the mountains where we have underground freshwater. In the mountains, typical wadi situation here. On the left-hand side, the large tree that is Sisyphus spina Christi, which also produces edible fruit. And the highest peaks in the mountains in 3,670 meters in Yemen, 3,015 in Saudi, 3,009 in Oman, and even in the Emirates, there is the mountains up to 1,900 meters on the border with Oman, whereas Bahrain, Kuwait, and Qatar have no real mountains. Most of the Arabian Peninsula looks like this. It's a gravel desert or a sand desert. The plant in the foreground is called Conolaca monacantha. It's a very common species and it is useful for camel grazing. Here we have Amebia hispidissima. It's a plant, when you pull that out of the ground, it's a very common species, not endangered. So when you pull that out of the ground, you have the bright red roots that the Bedouins use for the girls and for the women to use it as a rouge. And the proverb that I bought there, it's not a quotation from the Quran, but it's an Islamic proverb. The trees bow down in adoration of God. I find that a very, very beautiful proverb that we should all keep in our heart. Keeping in mind that there's other nations like us living on this planet. That is actually a citation from the Quran, and Leith already referred to the bird life, and I'm referring to the flora here. Blephara ciliata, despite the thorns that you can see, it's a valued fodder plant for livestock, in particular for camels. Convolvulus cephaloporus, this flowers in the early morning hours, and then it closes its flowers when the temperature gets too hot to avoid evapotranspiration. It's a good livestock forage, but also the Bedouins used that. They took the stalks of the plant to let their children suck on it because it calmed them down. Cistantia tubulosa is a parasitic plant. It's prized for many health benefits, potential tonic as an immune enhancer. Very interesting how the seeds of these plants, because they are not producing any leaves, they are growing on the seeds, on the roots of the other plant that you see on it. It's very interesting how the seeds are actually finding the roots of the host to then function as a parasite. Calotropis procera, it's a very widespread, beautiful plant throughout the Arabian Peninsula, but be careful, it's very toxic. It has a white latex, which shows promising potential for natural rubber and bio-based products. Studies have been carried out in the Middle East, in Egypt, and in India. More studies should be carried out. I hope that I can inspire a little bit the enthusiasm of young Gulf Arabs listening to me right now. Citrullus colocynthis, bitter apple. This cannot be consumed by humans, but it could be an ornamental, and it could also be used perhaps for genetic studies. Cucumis profitarum, the wild desert melon, and it can be complemented to traditional food, medicinal uses. Sometimes it is being consumed by local populations, especially when other food is scarce. It is being studied as a genetic resource for breeding cultivated melons because it is related to the melons. This is a plant that occurs after favorable conditions. It's another parasite that grows on the roots of, for example, tamarix and zygophyllum species. And it is known as a remedy for digestive issues and as an aphrodisiac. So perhaps it can be a competitor against Viagra. Forwoodia dixoniae is a rare and little known desert plant in the mustard family. It occurs in Saudi, Qatar, and Kuwait. It's a very beautiful plant, as we can see. Launaea mucronata, very widespread, a good fodder plant. Then we have Limonium axillare here that grows, for example, in the eastern province of Saudi, but also in Qatar and in the Emirates, in a coarse sand, a coarse sediment close to the shore, and it excretes the salt that it takes in through salt glands. The same is being done by the mangrove Avicennia marina and also by a number of salt-tolerant grass species that occur in the Arabian Peninsula. Lycium shoei here, it's a tomato family. The berry that you see here is not very large. It may be half a centimeter inside, but it tastes very, very nice. I've eaten it many times. And it actually tastes like tomato, but a little bit sweeter and even a little bit more aromatic. So it's a potential cash crop, but I've never seen anybody selling it on the market. This is perhaps the most widespread plant species in the Rub al-Khali, in the empty quarter, Cyprus conglomeratus. It's a sedge with a value as animal fodder. Then we have here Neurata procumbens. It used to be classified in the rose family, but now it has been classified as its own plant family, the Neurataceae. The photo from southern Qatar, it looks very similar to the eastern province of Saudi Arabia. calcium carbonate dunes. And the plant that we see here that dominates the vegetation is Cyclicia rosmarinus. The ancient Bedou, they used to use that as a soap. And what is phenomenal is that the plant grows above pH 9. Now, all the plant biology books, they teach you that above pH 9 there is no more plant growth, but this one grows in the range of pH 9 to pH 10. Zygophyllum qatarense, named after the state of Qatar. It's very, very difficult. Often it's being mistaken with Zygophyllum mandavillii, named after a botanist. Zygophyllum album. Album means white flower. And Zygophyllum hamiense. Hamiense is named after the city of Hama in Syria. All of them look very, very similar, and it's very difficult. So even us botanists, we often get mixed up with that, and we have different opinions about it. Another beauty of the desert is Silene villosa. It belongs to the Carnation family, the Caryophyllaceae. And really, most botanical work in the Arabian Peninsula was put together between the 80s and 90s by some international botanists with a little bit Gulf Arab participation. So much more needs to be done. And I really wish that young women and young men from Saudi and the Emirates are participating in it. By the way, the photo of the mangroves from United Arab Emirates that I've shown you is from a young Arab professional, Amna Al-Mansouri. Her name is now Dr. Alma Al-Mansouri because she just achieved her PhD successfully in the UK, and I congratulated her already to this achievement. I hope that a lot of Gulf Arabs will follow that good example. Tribulus arabicus, named after the Arabian Peninsula, is the it's the plant after which the Tribulus magazine is named, from the Emirates Natural History Group, the Abu Dhabi chapter. This plant is has the distribution centered on the Arabian Peninsula, especially in Saudi, in the Emirates, and in other GCC countries. Now, of course, I don't want to say the most important plant from the Arabian Peninsula, but because they are all important. But the flagship species is Phoenix dactylifera, the date palm. There is about 14 to 15 species of phoenix in the world. In the Canary Islands, it's Phoenix canariensis with a thicker trunk but smaller dates. In Ethiopia, it's Phoenix abyssinica, also known as Phoenix reclinata, with a tender stem, but also producing nice dates, but much smaller ones. And let us just pay a little bit respect to this plant, because it's a sacred symbol of life, sustenance, and prosperity. In Arab and Islamic culture, it's economically of great importance in the Middle East and in North Africa. I had the pleasure visiting a palm grove once in Tunisia. It was just mind-blowing, and I just love this plant. It's so delicious, so beautiful, and so important. And it is the plant that is being mentioned more often than any other plant in the Holy Quran. Of course, also the Quran mentions olives, Olea europaea. It mentions figs, Ficus cardica, grapes, Vitis vinifera, and pomegranates, Punica granatum. Those are the 5 most mentioned plants from the Holy Quran, but Phoenix dactylifera is the champion. The photos I've shown you, many of them were taken by myself, but many of them were also taken by other botanists, such as René Reicher, Alexei Sergeyev, John Norton, and Bob Bittenbach. They published this beautiful book, which is an exploration of Qatar's native and naturalized flora, called Hidden Beauty. If any one of you would like to purchase this book, they can be purchased, and I could connect you to the authors if you wish. In conclusion, even though some first-class research institutes have been established in Saudi, in UAE, in Qatar, in Kuwait, in Bahrain, and in Oman, most natural scientists in the field of nature conservation are still not Gulf nationals, and that is an issue, if not even a problem. The situation has improved over the last 2 or 3 decades or so, and some highly talented young professionals have come up, which is very promising, but much more is needed because with the love of the land and the love of its nature, it's very logical that at least 50% of the scientists should hail from these countries. It is therefore imperative that young Gulf Arab professionals are groomed to get involved, develop skills and understanding in scientific research, and realizing how important science is as an element for natural and cultural heritage conservation and to play serious roles in global issues. With that, I thank you very much for your attention. I hope that you could understand me well, and I should be happy to try to answer some of your questions if you have any.